Unlocking the Constitution. From the opening sentence, I guess, of the Constitution, we the people of the United States. From reading the work of William Paley, a London theologist, and political philosopher, whose 1788 writing that included in it Book 5, Roman numeral V, entitled On the Duty of Submission to Civil Government. The, I don't know if treatise is the right word, basically, essentially a treatise on the anatomical structure of government. First and foremost is understand that the presumption that comes from these type of figures, even their opponents, which goes to show you how pervasive it is, which gives you the idea that because it's so widespread that that it must be true, so to speak, because enough of them believe it, something along that lines. But even one of the most raving opponents of what can be considered the Crown's enterprise or the domination manifested in the central bank is the most obvious central banking system of the world, which is the most obvious and blatant remnant of the what's considered the British Empire, but as likewise and less infamous, more mundane, so to speak, is the Bar Association's interpretation of legal proceedings taking precedence over manners of the law. This is a tool used by oppressive entities or corrupt individuals so as to basically convict innocent people, as noted in the trial and death of Socrates. A gentleman by the name of Roger Williams, who during the, I believe it was the 1600s, yeah, during the 1600s, even before the United States was the United States, primarily became one of the first vocal voices or sources of contention in his call for the Puritans in America to disavow their allegiance, or association, in fact, with the Church of England. Much like the Bank of England is an association, in fact, has an association, in fact, with the Federal Reserve System, as well as the central bank of most other countries, including all the countries of South America, most countries of Europe, and Africa as well as Australia, Canada, and what's considered the Commonwealth, which makes it a little bit more blatant. But as such, even in his critique, here's a book that's written on him, on Roger Williams. It's an immensely, because even in today, to show you the relevance of this guy Roger Williams, or the degree in which what he spoke about is in essence still taboo, despite the notion, even with all the mythological status of America being some great independent thing, from the Statue of Liberty to all this kind of stuff like that, to having all these declarations, we're the richest country, blah blah blah, which implies we have the greatest, which we now know the richest country means that we have the greatest, we've amassed not wealth as in wealth, but that's been conveyed into we have amassed the greatest debt of any nation ever any social group ever on the planet. Debt ratio and everything like that. We surpass percentage, not just monetary numbers. Numbers change. So This little book on Roger Williams. One starting point of Williams thinking about politics was the widely accepted idea that government originates in an agreement between rulers and people. Although the idea was an old one, the Puritans of Old England and New, meaning America, had readily assimilated it and found no difficulty in reconciling it to their beliefs that government is an ordinance of God ordained and established by Him in order to hold in check the evil propensities of fallen men. If you look at this from a Freudian psychological standpoint, the accusation or the assertion that it's done to uh, hold back the propensities of evil men, in its of itself reveals that it is the primary means to perpetuate and to solidify the propensities of evil men. It also likewise is based on the sinful nature doctrine, which implies that all human beings, even children, are inherently sinful, aka evil or of the devil, and therefore this alternative entity, this like a substitute God, is necessary in the physical world in preparation as a preparatory measure for mankind. It's a salvation by works, so to speak. You have a government because salvation by works. But anyways, so on that note, this Roger Williams was before the Constitution was written. So his criticism was not widely accepted. It was actually adamantly opposed. English authorities and the elite in the colonial pre-United States New World were adamantly opposed to him and the other people that spoke like-minded. They actually created, to show you the degree of how the malicious, vicious, and resentment that they held towards him, he founded Providence, which is in Rhode Island, and most people don't know, but a good portion of Americans know that Rhode Island, while being the smallest state, which only recently had came to reach the 1 million people in total population, while yet possessing the same equal political status as California, and far exceeding the political status of the general black community, Hispanic community, or Native American communities within the United States, as it is almost virtually 100% white. Uh, Also boast of not only having the equal political status, pull, if not greater, than New York and California essentially combined. It housed, or it was the home, the base of the most corporations than any other state in the United States, having one building that was a P.O. box as the base of multiple corporations that primarily operated in other states and in other countries that were allotted the providence, providential protection of Rhode Island, which was originally founded to be a religious sectarian, if that makes any sense. It's basically a secular type religious structure, which seems oxymoron, but one of the premises of Roger Williams was the efforts, and not only the efforts, but the manners that the efforts were made in as to converting Indians, which basically was just the overall justification for massive genocide and massacre in the end, as saying, "Oh, they rejected us, so they must be our enemy. We must kill them." It's this poor "woe is me" predatory mentality that still pervades most of the self-identified Americans, particularly. Well, it's not racially confined. It's a human psychological phenomenon. But anyways, so as such, so he was never. It's kind of like there are three. If you want to look at the three massive opposing ideas that have existed in America's time, and Martin Luther King doesn't rank up there, because Martin Luther King was trying to, despite his anti-war efforts, which developed over the span of a year from April 4th, 1967 to 1 year later, April 4th, 1968, when he was assassinated. His primary MO, modus operandi, to was to convince the white majority that the black minority should have equal access to the American infrastructure, so to speak, which had happened to and fro. You have, if you look up Black Wall Street, you'll see that Black Wall Street, the St. Louis race riots, a variety of other things. The first black officer ever admitted into the United States military. For the most part, anytime there's always this trail of allowing of white people sort of letting loose the reins a little bit, and black people taking hold of their reins and as performance, kind of like in a sports endeavor. But when it's in business, it's a different story. It's kind of like the thing too. You even see with who's that guy, 50 Cent, who had the opportunity at one point to take the controlling stock of Coca-Cola, and didn't. That's not a smart business move, and that's not what white people would do. There was a greater force that was looking at the notion of black American of any caliber taking the head seat of one of America's most well-established corporate entities, and therefore he settled for money, which was a lot less on his. He settled for 50 cents on the dollar, essentially 50 cents on the $10, essentially. So, but as such, the function of the Constitution, from William Paley's writings, which became the crux, so to speak, the John Hancock of the intention behind a constitutional governments in general. Basically, he was a modern day version of Plato's Republic, created under the premise of Christian values and purported with biblical references such as Romans, subject yourself to the powers that be, render unto Caesar what Caesar is, and something in Galatians, that all authority is granted by God. That perpetuated the idea that a human being, by nature of being born in a geographical location, is thereby designated by the providence of God having that human being born there. This is where you get all this goes. Thereby, God endorses the social contract of the governing authority having sovereignty over that individual person. So therefore, the Constitution, likewise, is constructed so as to maintain a status quo, or it's like, put like this. If an adult, okay, when you're born, you go through different developmental stages. Everybody knows an adult that is stuck in the stage of a kid. Most of the time, it's always somebody else other than yourself, but that's a good enough association. So as such, as the government is the and this is why they talk about the founding fathers and they try to equate them to they assert a level, they obsess over a level of morality that doesn't really exist, and any flaws are debunked under they were just easily influenced, but otherwise their character was astounding, such as the fact that they established the age of consent, meaning the age that men can copulate with women. The legal definition of a woman under the founding fathers was 10 years old, which I don't think qualifies. So the Constitution, according to William Paley, is a tool to prevent the maturing or the altering or the development of a political system so as to secure a basic, childish, if you want, primitive being origin or orientated um, power structure. And this is why the Constitution, in the very first paragraph, which I'm not even going to get into read it. If you want to read it, look it up. Makes a primary distinction, a legal a distinction between we the people and of the United States, prescribing the Constitution's foundation as for the benefit of the United States, which in this basically juvenalistic, infantile, brutal, mean-spirited psychology is only exists to distinguish adamantly between what would be considered the we the people and the United States. The significance of that distinction being the of the United States are the people that wield the are sanctioned, so to speak, the capacity to commit acts of violence that otherwise resort or are conferred as terrorism, revolution, counter insurgency or revolt or whatnot like that. So you see where police use brutal force of varying degrees. If you see in Kent University, they even killed. Jackson University, they even killed all the way up until Occupy Wall Street, all United States citizens. They can assert great amounts of horrifically terrifying violence, from chemical agents, fighting with dogs still to this day, to electrical control devices, to rubber bullets, and even lethal force. Um, the Constitution that they swore their oath to is what allots them that power by making them a distinction between them and we the people. So therefore they are taken out of that category. You see this reiterated with the Bill of Rights, which again goes on to sound all very nice, like, oh, look at, these are the protections that the government doesn't understand. It's under the guise that these are the protections the government provides the people at the purview of the government, and according to William Paley, again, because of the geographical location of your birth, based on the omniscience and will of God, you are therefore were created solely to be an entity or a unit of the greater authority, which is literally the state. Um, and As such, you see this replicated all over. The big thing is, oh, some country trying to become, oh, it's developing countries and whatnot like that. So, in sum, the entire function, existence of the Constitution, as well as the Bill of Rights, are again legal utensils to make a distinction between the we the people and the United States. The United States being subject to a greater authority, we the people being ward to the guardian, the United States. The United States operates in the interests of its creator. Its creator still stands to this day. You can be evidenced by just taking a look at Adam Smith or John Adams, somebody like that. Famous quote, there are two ways to enslave a nation. One is by the sword, the other is by debt. The implementation by only 12 senators out of 100 on Christmas Eve, in a midnight voting to implement the Federal Reserve System upon the entire blunt sum of we the people, thereby enacting the Income Tax Act by corporatizing all legal transactions, and at the same time perpetuating the national debt that is again directly tied to the Bank of England, so that the American people can never essentially wean themselves off of the debt tip, the teeth of debt. So the that's the gist of it. The Constitution is completely opposite of what people perceive it to be, as well as the Bill of Rights. Just like the John Marshall told the Native American Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, by the simple fact that you originally accepted or you cite or you reference such uh, articles, that you thereby admit the sovereign authority of the government to decide the implementation, application, or the what you call it, like withdrawal of said terms, as you are not the United States. You identify yourself as we the people. So that's the gist of it.